said, stocks which are purchased with the intention of dividends or certain other stocks, they're not zakatable in the way that I'm mentioning them. Because those fatwas or those scholars, they were talking about a stock market usually in a different type of economy, in a different country, not in America. So they were looking at the stock from the perspective of you're actually buying a major portion of a company. You're actually a major stockholder in the company, and in that case, you're treated as a partner of the company, and therefore you're treated as, the way you pay zakat is like a businessman who owns part of a company. Whereas in stocks, in American stock market, stocks are viewed very differently, because when you own 1,000 shares of Google or 10,000 shares of Apple, you actually have you don't even have close to even 1% of the actual shares of that entire company, because it's so large. So we're not talking about the same type of analogy. So try not to make analogy with those fatwas which came out primarily in the 70s and the 80s and all of that. But if someone were to own a large percentage of a company, significantly large percentage of a company, then in that case you can consider yourself an actual partner in the company, and you can pay your zakat according to the way that a partner in a business would be paying their zakat, which we're going to talk about soon. Okay, so hopefully that is clear. When it comes to stocks or when it comes to dividends, here's a side note, is that any type of profits that you're getting from interest actually has to be given away in charity without the intention of getting any type of reward, and you should deduct that before paying your zakat. So this is a common question actually. So if I have a bank account and I'm getting interest from my bank account, right? And I have dividends, and large percentage of the dividends or the stocks are giving me interest or whatever it may be. What do I do? Do I pay zakat on that interest or do I not? Do I include the interest in my zakat calculation or not? And the answer is no. You don't pay zakat on the interest. But what do? You give all of that interest away in charity. Alright, so it's not like you're neglecting to pay zakat on it. It's because technically that wealth does not belong to you in the first place, and immediately you almost consider it like it's not in your possession. It's just on the side, and you need to get rid of it immediately at the end of the month or at the end of the year. Okay, it just goes in charity. Investments which have a different currency value from their market value sometimes pose tricky. It's a tricky issue sometimes. So, anyone collect like comic books or coins or antiques or anything like that? What do you collect? You collect coins. Perfect example, right? So you collect coins. What's your most valuable coin in terms of what its value is? $150. What kind of coin is it?
Sasanian coin.
It's a what?
Sasanian coin.
Sasanian coins. Old time. Oh, okay. What about modern coins? Your most expensive modern coin? No modern coins? Okay. But there are some coins that, like $2 bills and those old dollar coins or something like that. One of those really ancient antique coins. That technically it's worth $1, right? It says $1 on it. It's written $1. But if you were to go and sell it in the market, you can get $5, or you can get $10, or sometimes it's really antique. You can get like $1,000 or something for that. So now, if you're collecting that, are you going to be paying on its actual market value? Or are you going to be paying on its functional value if you were going to trade it? Or do you say that this is purely for personal use and I'm a collector, so this is my personal coin collection. I don't need to pay zakat on it because it's personal value. So it's a question, right? It's a little bit tricky question. So what it is you need to look at your intention. So your intention should be taken into consideration, like vintage comic books, right? I guess nobody collects comic books. I used to collect. You collect comic books?
Yeah.
You have a collection of comic books, right? If you look at the first comic book which had like the first Spider-Man ever, on the cover price it says 12 cents, or something like 10 cents or 12 cents. Now obviously the value is like $15,000 or something. So what do you do in that case? And is this considered to be a personal thing? What if you say, well, you know what? I really like X-Men so much, and I have all these old comic books, and I actually do read them from time to time. So I do open them and I do read them. So I'm benefiting from them personally, but do I have to pay on them? And you can apply this analogy to whatever collectors, items are. The thing is, if your intention is to sell them eventually, all right, and to make a profit, and that's what you're planning on doing, you're planning on waiting and holding so that the value goes up or whatever, if that's your primary intention, meaning over 50% of your intention of keeping it in the first place, then you treat it as a business asset and you have to pay zakat. If really you're one of those people who just loves to read this issue of that comic book and it's just your favorite one, then you don't take its value because you're not interested in selling it, you just want to keep it. Right? So any investment that is for the sake of profit, right, is differentiated by an investment that's for the sake of personal use, and the only way to tell the difference between them is through your individual intention. And when you're conflicted and you say, well, I want to own it and I want to also make money off of it. Many people say, I have a vacation home, so I have a vacation home, but at the same time, it's going to go up in value. This is a good real estate property in front of the beach or whatever, but I'm not renting it out. So which one is your primary intention? You need to figure it out for yourself, and Allah knows. Allah knows better, so you need to try and figure out, well, what am I really doing this for? Would I have done it if the value wasn't there? That's the best way to ask yourself. And if it's over 50% personal, then you don't need to pay zakat. If it's over 50% investment related, you have to pay zakat. Okay, so you decide what your intention is going to be. Accounts which have access restrictions. Okay, any type of accounts which has certain access restrictions, such as retirement accounts, or IRA accounts, 401k accounts, pension plans, and all of that, outside of pension plans, those which have just access restrictions are zakatable. Meaning you still have to pay zakat on them as long as you have access to the wealth. So as long as you have potential access to that wealth, it is zakatable. Even if somebody says that, well, there are certain restrictions in which you can access this wealth. You have to be in a certain level of poverty, or you have to be, whatever, or as long as if you die, that wealth is still going to be coming to you. Right? It's not just going to disappear and go away. If you become poor, or you lose your house, or you lose your job, and you have nothing, before you're thrown out on the street, and you have no place to live, you will get access to that wealth, then generally that wealth is considered to be restricted access. You do have access to it though. At some point in time, you may not have direct access to it now. Maybe they're going to charge you a penalty. So you still have that access to it, then it's considered to be zakat. You have to pay that wealth. But if money is held in a certain type of retirement plan, which is not accessible, or which you may not get if you don't survive and you don't live that long, like a pension plan or something like that, then it's not zakatable because those funds will not be available for withdrawal in any way. So for example, the social security that you're paying into today, right? If you die early, is it going to be inherited to your heirs? No. And if you survive, well, the way the government's going now, you may not even get that anyways, right? But you don't know. So it's not considered zakatable in that sense. Okay? So this is when it comes to those accounts. And I'm sure there'll be questions about 401k, penalty or not penalty. We'll take that in the Q&A time. Gold and silver. The next is gold and silver. So gold and silver generally have always had intrinsic values throughout the world. Right? So they are also zakatable whenever they're in the form of currency, type of currency like gold nuggets, gold bars, gold coins, etc. Because nobody keeps these things for personal use. You can't imagine someone saying, I'd like to look at the gold coins in my house, every week, and I like to play around with them. And we just flip them around. It's our hobby. It's not a hobby. You don't keep gold coins in your house for that reason. So any type of gold in that form it's not personal. It's for investment related reason, or it's considered currency, even if it's not a generally used currency in your locality. But now the question is, if you possess gold or silver that is primarily for personal use, and there's no intention of investment, then do you have to pay zakat on that? Like for example, if you own jewelry, which is made of gold and silver, and you're utilizing that jewelry for personal use, or you own certain decorative pieces in your house. People, it's very common in Muslim houses, they have like silver, teapots and silver jars and all of that, and they never use these ever. They're just there for decoration, golden jars or something like that, but they're not actually using them. Because you're not supposed to use golden, utensils anyways, Islamically. But for decorations, it's okay to have it. Now the question is, do you need to pay zakat on that for its personal use? So scholars have differed. Scholars have differed on this issue. But I think one of the good way, a good balanced opinion in between the two opinions is that if this jewelry or these things, if they're being used, they're actually being used at least a few times, throughout the year, then that's considered something that you're using for your personal use, and you don't need to pay zakat on it. If you're not using it, and it's kind of sitting in a drawer for safekeeping, or you're keeping it under your bed, or you're keeping it in a safe deposit box or something like that, and you're rarely ever going and accessing it or wearing it or whatever, then that's more like it's an investment-related type of thing. You're keeping it for a rainy day, or if your husband does something, ridiculous or something like that, you can, threaten him on the other side, say, I got my jewelry and this and that, all of those things. So from that perspective, you do need to pay zakat on those things. So this is kind of like an opinion between the two of them. So you have to figure that out for yourself. So that's gold and silver. So 8:15 is zakat. So should we break now? Okay, so we're going to break now, inshallah, and we'll come back and we'll continue, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
حي على